Bobby Lee exposes Joe Rogan over joke stealing controversy. Bobby Lee exposes Joe Rogan over joke stealing controversy, courtesy of Podcast Cringe. Big up.
You're gonna ask me something?
Is it true that Joe Rogan called you and told you Carlos Mencia stole your joke?
Oh, wild.
Isn't he in the, what you call him? He is in the rules like for tax evasion. Not
He
right.
just got out of jail like today.
No, yesterday.
Yesterday he got released. Yeah, tax evasion.
You're bringing up, I love it. I love what you're doing.
But I've heard that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Go ahead.
I love it. And I'm going to go with it, Shannon. Right?
So Joe and Carlos don't like each other.
Oh my God. No.
They hate each other. And I'm going to.
Why? What do you understand?
Here's something, and this is the first time I've ever said this, and this is just something, oh my God.
Shay exclusive.
I don't know. All right. Maybe I shouldn't say it.
Just say it.
Just say it.
Whatever you want, just say it.
We've said it about you, and I know you probably disagree maybe to a certain extent, but I think the greatest thing that ever happened to you was that getting kicked out of the Comedy Store. That period of time where you had to reevaluate yourself. But I think as comics, we look at you reinventing yourself and reimagining yourself and making it your own fucking entity and creating this podcast, which
I can't wait until I get rich and famous, man. I can't wait until I get rich and famous and grown-ass men talk about me like this. Like, what? He had a little spat and an argument with a fellow comedian over a justifiable reason. At the time, he was treated badly for it. Cool. Over time, he was, history looked fondly at him. But it wasn't that deep. It really wasn't that deep. Like, it really wasn't. He's adding all of this hyperbole, all of this fucking glaze because it's Rogan, but like, what? He had a disagreement with his work colleague. It played out in public. In the end, Rogan won in a very big way. It wasn't really much more than that. People look at you and it would need to have reinvented. What? Huh?
has changed all of our lives. That moment, and it must have been tough to lose your agent, get kicked out of the Comedy Store, and have to figure things out. That we all got behind. Everyone got behind you. Everyone was like, "That's my guy."
Bobby Lee has got a lot.
Jesus Christ, they definitely want to get behind him and fuck him as well.
Going on right now. He's just recorded his first ever comedy special. He's got a new game show with Andrew Santino called Bad Game Show, and apparently he's got a new girlfriend, Tom Segura's ex-wife Christina P., which is crazy timing. They only just separated and bro swooped in. But he also just appeared on Club Shay Shay with Santino. Shannon has somehow built one of the biggest interview platforms in the world. Cat Williams went on there and torched the entire industry. Bert Kreischer, Andrew Schultz, Mark Normand, Matt Rife, Gabrielle Iglesias, Donnell Rawlings, Ralph Barbosa. The list keeps growing, and now Bobby and Santino have entered the building. The thing that caught my eye, though, was the whole discussion about the Joe Rogan-Carlos Mencia joke-stealing situation.
But visually, he's looking good, though, isn't he? He's looking... Am I dare I say, does he look younger a little bit? Or is it the Ozempic? Like, he looks good in the face, isn't it, Bobby Lee? I'm not going to lie. He actually looks good in the face. Obviously, it helps that he's sober, don't get me wrong. But he looks way better in the face. Maybe it's being with that Kalila. Maybe it's that Kalila diet, innit? But he does look bright, you know? He looks bright in the face.
And for anyone who isn't familiar with what happened, basically Rogan called out Mencia for stealing jokes, lost his agent, got kicked out of the Comedy Store, and then reinvented himself, started a podcast, and the rest is history. Really? That's the short version, like the really, really short version, because holy shit, there's so much more to it than that, because Bobby Lee just added some context that changes how you might think about this whole thing, because as you probably know, Bobby was in the middle of this, and what he explains on Club Shay Shay, some of which he's never said publicly before, paints a much more complicated picture of what Rogan was actually doing and why he did it. Remember though, if you like my videos and you want to see the longer form uncensored ones that I can't put here on YouTube, check out the link in the description to my Patreon. I just dropped a full breakdown of Rogan getting completely duped by Rupert Lowe, and there's over 60 other videos waiting for you there.
This is what happened. Okay, so there's two people that discovered me back in the day.
Yeah.
It was Pauly Shore
Yeah.
and Carlos Mencia.
Okay.
When I was a San Diego open micer.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do. Big up aside the scenes. We'll do.
And they did the Comedy Store in San Diego.
Yes.
They saw me do 5 minutes, and they went, "We like this kid," and I started opening for them. Obviously, Pauly Shore's mom owned the Comedy Store, right? So that helped me get into the Comedy Store. But Mencia, you know what I mean, took me on the road and taught me so much about comedy.
Right.
This question of like stealing jokes and this and that, right? Yeah, you know.
He stole your joke. The lack of a better word.
Here's
he borrowed it.
No. Here's what he's the master of.
Right.
Right? He's the master of taking a premise, right? Changing it and making it better.
Uh-huh.
That's what he did.
Right.
Right? He would look at some comic's premise, right? Do one punchline and he would extend it to 5 minutes.
Right.
Right? He was an incredible performer.
Yes.
Okay?
The thing that's so funny about this whole conversation is that Shannon has absolutely no idea what any of this is about. His producers obviously gave him a card that says, "Ask Bobby about Mencia and joke stealing," because it's a controversial topic, and Shannon just runs with it. Bird actually talked about this on JRE, how he thinks that Shannon's team troll Reddit for provocative questions, and Shannon just...
I don't think so. I think Shannon's also a fan of stand-up comedy. He knows a lot about stand-up. I wouldn't say that. I think he actually likes stand-up comedy. So I think he's aware of what's going on, at least for the most part. But he's a fan of stand-up. I don't think he's just been told to. I don't think he's fucking what's his face. He's not hooked to a girl. Do you know what I mean? He's not just being told to ask questions. You know. I think he actually knows what he's talking about a little bit when it comes to stand-up.
Fires them off. Like, for example, later on, Shannon says, "So Joe and Carlos actually hate each other?" Like, the guy has no idea. But most people don't realize how close...
No, but for a long time, Joe used to say he did not hate him. I think that's a valid question. For a long time, Joe would Joe would lie and say that he's totally fine with Carlos, he's moved past it, but it's obvious that he still fucking hates him. And wishes probably that he dies and shit. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's fine to say, oh, what, does Joe actually hate him? Because Joe always pretends like he's above everything and doesn't read things online, isn't affected, But yeah, he clearly hates that guy. Understandably so, by the way. But he does clearly hate him.
Bobby was to Mencia at the time. Mencia discovered Bobby, he took him on the road, paid his bills, and bought him a car too, apparently. So this wasn't some casual professional relationship. Mencia was his actual mentor, and because he's been exiled for 20 years...
And also, to be fair as well to Bobby Lee, if I'm not mistaken, at the same time that was happening, he was also getting bullied at the Comedy Store, no? If I'm not mistaken. So he found it hard to, like, even though Mencia was stealing jokes, and he did become, like, you know, the biggest enemy, the most hated person in the comedy scene, at that time at the Comedy Store, it was hard for him to kind of, like, ditch Mencia, or to side with everybody else, because of, number one, Mencia legitimately gave him his career, and the guys that he was meant to stand next to instead of Mencia were the ones that were fucking bullying him and mocking him and shit. Because at first he said he used to hate the Comedy Store. Had like a bro, chatty energy. You know, the same shit Rogan does now. And he didn't really like hanging out with those guys. So yeah, he would have been in a very conflicted position, you know? The guy you're meant to hate, the guy you're not meant to be friends with, is also the guy that gave you the career. And the guys you're meant to be friends with are the ones who are bullying you and teasing you and all that shit every single day.
Is people forgot how famous this guy actually was. He had a hit show on Comedy Central, he was selling out arenas, and at the time he was literally one of the biggest comics in the world. And that fame is actually what made what he did so toxic. Mencia was part of a different era in comedy. There was no social media, not much scrutiny or accountability, and that's not to justify what he did, but you need to understand the attitude of guys like Mencia. They believe that because they were at the top, they were entitled entitled to whatever material they wanted from comedians beneath them. Their logic was, I'm the superstar, I can take your premise and make it better, so it's mine now. So that whole hierarchy of entitlement was big back then, and in my opinion is what made this whole situation so unforgivable. But I'll come back to that in a moment.
You know, comics didn't like him because of his behavior, right?
Yeah.
Especially Joe Rogan.
Yes.
Right? I was friends with Joe as well.
Yes.
Right? So Joe asked me, right? He had a cameraman, which I didn't see. And
It's kind of brutal though, because imagine if he does take a joke and makes it funnier though. And Joe has never been funny. So imagine if there's a scenario where at one point Mencia took one of Joe's premises and made it way funnier. And Joe's never been funny. So it probably stung way more back then, right? Because of that. Joe's out here doing his bad Sam Kinison impression, screaming into the microphone, not being funny. Carlos Mencia sees the premise, sees it's got potential, flips it, does it his way, maybe adds some hacky Hispanic angle to it, and everybody in the fucking room is crying laughing. Rogan's just there like turning beetroot red. Rogan's just there boiling like a fucking kettle.
he was filming me. I didn't see the camera. And Joe asked me, you know, does Mencia steal jokes? And I made a joke of it, but I kind of admitted that he did. But then I turned, I saw that was being taped. They put that shit out on the internet. And I started getting roasted.
I don't know what that is. That's Ned Holmes.
Oh, I know Ned Holmes. Yeah, he's really good. Hey, that's all that stuff.
That's good?
Hey, all that stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah, Ned.
Do a couple minutes to get to material real quick.
Well, I'll just do some of my material and then it'll be the same. And then this is what happened, right?
But it also kind of shows that Bobby Lee's always kind of been he's a bit slimy though. That's why I've always got a bit of a love-hate relationship with Bobby Lee. Like that kind of like Arrested Development, act like a child thing. I find it really annoying. I'm not gonna lie. The guy's like 50 years old. I find the whole child thing really, really annoying. I'm not gonna lie. Personally for me, just as a man, as a human, I can't vibe with the acting like I can't vibe with it. But he's also a little bit snaky. He's a little bit snaky. Because at that point, Carlos Mencia is your guy. Yes, he steals jokes. Yes, he's a little bit egotistical. Yes, he's a little bit up his own ass. Because rightfully so at that time, Carlos Mencia was a top dog, right? HBO specials, all that shit. All those things are true. But he's your guy. Why are you talking about your guy that on camera anyway? Off camera, on camera. Why are you talking like that about your guy behind his back? Bobby Lee's a bit of a snake, man. I'm not gonna lie, he's a little bit of a snake. In the same way that he snaked Eric Griffin with fucking the show that he does with fucking Andrew Santino. For a long time, if you remember back in the day on Tiger Belly, Eric Griffin used to go on there and that's when Eric Griffin was actually good. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe Eric just got beaten down by the industry, to be honest. Maybe the industry just beat him down. Maybe lack of I don't know what it was, but Eric Griffin on Tiger Belly used to be actually somewhat decent. They had like a decent dynamic, like a decent kind of trolley dynamic. But one of the long-running bits, whenever Eric Griffin would go on Tiger Belly, would be, him and Bobby Lee doing a show together. Let's do a show together. Let's do a show together. Kalila would be gassing it up. The producers, yeah, man, you guys are good. Do a show together. Do a show together. Bobby Lee's, yeah, cool. We'll do a show together. Then out of nowhere, Bad Friend pops up. Now all of a sudden, Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino are best friends. And Eric, I'm sure, if I'm not mistaken, Eric Griffin has known or did know Bobby Lee way before fucking Andrew Santino popped up. But Bobby Lee immediately went to Andrew Santino and said, yeah, I'll do it with you. Fuck Eric Griffin. Now, don't get me wrong. It worked out for the best, because obviously they've got a really good dynamic and chemistry. But it's another evidence that Bobby Lee's a bit snaky. He's a little bit slimy. He's a little bit backstab. Like, he's not to be trusted, I don't think. He's not to be trusted. He's a little bit, He's a bit funny style, Bobby Lee. In my opinion, it's a little bit funny style. Again, I could be remembering it wrong. My law could not be all over the place when it comes to law. So please forgive me, Tiger Belly, Bobby Lee fans out there. I'm maybe not, but my opinion, I still think talking that way about your mentor, about your fucking guy that brought you into industry, that gave you a chance, that paid your bills, and let you sleep in his house, all that shit, gave you opportunities, even if he was a joke thief, talking like that about him behind his back, you're a bit of a snake, man.
Mind of Mencia, right? He had a TV show on Comedy Central called Mind of Mencia, and Mad TV were on the same lot. They were connected.
Wow.
Right? So when that popped off, I was in my fucking dressing room.
Right.
And, you know, Carlos's, you know what I mean, family members knocked on my dressing room door. And they go, yo, that's not cool. And I go, I know. I didn't know they were taping, you know. And he's like, you have to do a rebuttal video saying that he didn't. So then they took me outside and they filmed me saying, yeah, he doesn't, you know, this and that. That goes on the, I get roasted even more, right? So now I'm roasted twice over a situation that had nothing to do with. Right? So it was a really bad time for me. And
lack of accountability is kind of crazy, though. What do you mean nothing to do? You got yourself involved in it by talking behind his back. Yes, he didn't know the camera's there, but you got yourself involved in it. That's why you then had to put a rebuttal. But it is kind of funny that they made him do this, by the way. He's been getting bullied since the moment he stepped into comedy, isn't it? Fucking hell. They made him do this hostage fucking video. Rebuttaling the fucking claim that Mencia steals jokes is crazy. But Carlos Mencia's family rolls heavy, though. Carlos Mencia's got some real steppers in his family, bro. They dragged Bobby Lee out of his hotel room, like. Correct the record right now. Holy shit.
Bobby Lee, I've known Carlos Mencia about 11 years. I've been opening for him since the 90s. He's one of
Yeah, you still said what you said behind his back. Nah, this guy's not to be trusted, man. Yeah, you still said what you said about him behind his back. This guy's not to be trusted. He's again, happy guy. I'm sure he's good vibes, great to hang out with, usually very funny. But he's a bit of a snake, this Bobby Lee guy. A bit of a snake.
my best friends, and I've never seen him steal a joke. He never stole a joke from me. And
Are you and Mencia cool today?
I love him.
It's a yes or no.
No, wait.
Wait. The man. Bobby
Except in the car?
Bobby was the one that stole the jokes.
Yeah. You feel guilty of accepting the car.
No. No, I mean, there's a little bit of guilt there because I kind of had to detach from him for my own career's sake.
Right.
Jesus Christ. Like, he's a real snake, bro. He's a real snake. You know, like, think about it. Mencia brings him into comedy, mentors him, helps him out financially, all that shit, right? There for him, all that shit. Yes, Mencia is also a piece of shit himself. We get it. Joke thief, we get it. But then, obviously, things go to shit for him. And Bobby Lee completely ditches Mencia and then becomes a Comedy Store Rogan adjacent guy. And never really speaks to Mencia again. Jesus Christ. For the sake of my, like, don't get me wrong, history has proven right? History has proven Bobby Lee right. He picked the right horse. He picked Rogan over Mencia. History has, has like looked fondly on him. But god damn, this guy's a little slithering snake, innit? A little Korean snake.
And that felt terrible to do because I was caught in a difficult situation. And so what do you do in that situation?
You're in an unwinnable situation.
Yeah, and Joe Rogan was on the rise, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it
Joe Rogan was on the rise, Mencia was on the decline. What else am I gonna do? Of course I'm gonna hitch my wagon on Rogan. God damn, this guy's slimy.
was like,
Yeah, that's a pretty wild thing to admit on a podcast this big. Bobby still obviously loves Carlos and still appreciates everything he did for him, but at the time the dynamic shifted and he had to ride the wave Rogan had created, so he effectively ditched Carlos and joined Club Rogan. He's spoken about this before, but never really as candidly as he
could have just said no comment originally on the video and not said anything about them trolling or commenting on Mencia stealing jokes. He could have just continued doing comedy after Mencia got cancelled or got called out, and eventually ended up with Rogan. It could have still worked out the same way, but it's the way that he did it is a slimy way. It's the way that he did it. You know, he very publicly cut his link with Mencia and started hanging out with all those guys very, very quickly, and made it very clear. You know, like ugh.
Has now, especially about his own position in all of it. You know, that guilt that he still carries after all these years tells you everything about how he really feels about the whole situation. And Bobby's not without his own flaws. I've pointed out plenty over the years. The guy's in his mid-50s and still thinks exposing himself on stage is peak comedy. The whole awkward little Asian guy routine where he forces himself onto news anchors. Yeah, he really needs to sort that shit out. But the thing about Bobby is he has this uncanny ability to get roped into comedy drama that has nothing to do with him. The Mencia situation, the Schaub and Callan situation where they threatened him to keep Kalila quiet about the Walk Me to My Trug saga. He got beaten up by Ari Shaffir as well, who, by the way, I still understand why he's famous. Bobby just keeps ending up as collateral damage in other people's wars, and so he gets caught up in the moment with Shannon.
But he's done really well for himself, though, to be fair. He's done really well for himself. He's done really fucking well. Despite being a human punching bag, he's done really well for himself. Like, all things considered. Like, so, basically, underestimate him at your peril. That's the thing with someone like a Bobby Lee. Underestimate him at your peril. Underestimate a guy like that at your peril, because he has survived many things. He has survived many things and come up on top. He survived, you know what I mean? Different shifts in power and influence and whatever. And he's always stayed on top. You know? Underestimate this guy at your peril. He's a bit dorky. He's a bit fucking, you know, the whole adult baby routine I really despise. But don't fucking discount this guy, man. He's a lot cleverer than he looks.
And Sharp and ends up spilling the beans on Rogan about something that happened in the lead up to the whole Carlos Mencia situation.
Go ahead, say what you want to say. For real, say it.
All right. So what I had heard, right, was when, and this is from, you know, many people telling me this back in the day, is that when Rogan first moved to LA from Boston, they went.
By the way, big up Red Bar, by the way. Big up Red Bar. Every time I see Santino, I think of Red Bar. Red Bar decided one day that he just hates Santino, and then randomly some random girl hits him up and says, yeah, I used to fuck him or something, or I still do, like some side piece. Like, what? When no one really knew who he was. And then he just started like honestly, Red Bar is undefeated. Like, I hope he comes back at some point. But that was so funny. Like, for a period, like, he had Andrew Santino sweating. He had him sweating. He just started like hating on him. And then some girl reached out and said, yeah, I got information. It was so funny. It just completely came out of the blue. Like, what? Oh, bless Andrew Santino. He's probably happy Red Bar's not around. He's probably really happy. Andrew Santino's probably really happy Red Bar's not around.
To play pool one night.
Rogan and Mencia.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is something that, and I heard they got in a fight.
About what?
I don't know.
Probably pool.
I don't know.
But
it was a pretty bad fight. Okay. And I don't know what the fight was about, right? But I think that was the beginning of the riff. I don't know if it was about joke stealing. It could have been over a girl. Yeah. It could have been over the actual game of pool. But I know from what I heard from other sources. Now, I don't know if it's verified or not, so I'm going to say this. But I think it's a resentment that stems, you know what I mean, from the beginning.
Bobby says it right there at the end. I think it's a resentment that stems from the beginning. That's kind of the point of him telling this story. I don't think he's trying to minimize what Mencia did. He's basically saying there was something else going on between Rogan and Mencia separate from the joke stealing. Some sort of...
Yeah, but you could tell though, even from the argument on the stage, you could tell that it was real hate there. You could tell there was real hate there, but I think some of it also probably had to do with career as well. At that time, Rogan wasn't as popular or as famous as Mencia. Mencia was legitimately on fire. So I can imagine, although Rogan likes to talk about, oh, everyone should share and not be jealous. Maybe part of it also was a little bit of jealousy at that time, you know? Rogan wasn't as famous, wasn't as well known, wasn't as rich as Mencia. Mencia was joke stealing and way richer than him. So I could imagine a lot of it maybe had something to do with that, you know what I mean? And then it kind of overspilled. But yeah, you could tell from their exchange on the stage that there was some real hate between both of them. You know, you could tell. And I also wonder if it's because they were both leaders of their group, innit? Like Rogan was a leader of his group, and Mencia was a leader, obviously, of his little group with Bobby Lee and shit. So maybe that was as well part of it. Like, you know, just two alphas, two like leaders of their group, kind of like butting heads.
Personal grudge that goes back to when Rogan first moved to LA. Who knows? It could be some sort of gay love triangle. People don't acknowledge this enough about Rogan. He's a Valley Girl bitch. He always has been. He's so tribal. He's envious. He's ambitious. And when he doesn't get his way, he turns into a bully. That competitive mindset from his Taekwondo days carried straight into the comedy scene. He was on
That's a good diss. That competitive spirit from his Taekwondo days. Big up podcast cringe. Big up Todd. What up, Crypt Regular? I'm crypt up from the leg day yesterday. Yeah, gloves are gay. Chalk up for sure. You know. Now I wouldn't say gloves are gay. It's a personal preference. If you don't want your hands to look like mine, then you know, wear gloves. If you want soft, supple hands, wear your gloves. But I can't wear gloves now because I'm so used to having chalk. But yeah, big up all the chalk wearers. Big up all the chalk wearers and users, and big up all the fingerless gloves people, them. But I'm seeing a lot of people wearing, I'm seeing a lot of people in the gym doing now. You know those like construction gloves. People are wearing those in the gym now as gloves for the whatever, for the weights and shit. Wearing those kind of like the ones that they're kind of like a rubbery material.
Affected but hadn't quite broken through yet as a stand-up comic. Meanwhile, Mencia was stealing material and bumping comedians, acting like he owned the store, so he became the perfect target. So, Bobby's story has way more behind it than what's been said, and this is where he really gets into it.
Also, I want to say this, right? This is where Mencia went wrong.
Right.
Okay, Carlos. Ned. That's his real name.
The response.
Yeah, I love him. Okay.
The response.
But here's where it went wrong. Okay.
Get to the edge of the couch, sir. There you go.
Okay. In the 90s.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just gonna say it, right? Being a Comedy Store comic was a regular at that club right down the street.
Yes.
Right, was the worst because if Andrew Dice Clay, Eddie Griffin.
Yeah.
Right. And Mencia was there, that would mean you wouldn't get up.
They'd do an hour apiece.
They would do 2 hours apiece, 3 hours apiece.
And they did that every night. And there was like, Mitzi just let him go?
Yeah. There was
Why?
like 4 or 5 of them that were
seems
like
very
that.
bizarre that she would let him do that.
I remember one time Rogan and Eddie Griffin went up for hours, and Rogan and I were in the not the lobby, but out in the patio. Mm-hmm. Like one time, you and I were at the Comedy Store. We're in the patio, and Eddie Griffin bumped us, right? And we were talking shit.
So this must be early days.
Early days. Back in the
90s,
day.
right?
90s.
He would go on at 9 o'clock, and your spot would be at 9:15, and he would do 3 hours.
Imagine me and Rogan out in the...
Fuck it. Comedians are real pieces of shit, innit? Comedians are real pieces of shit. You've got a Comedy Store that's open, 6 hours? A comedian comes in and does 3. And there's like 12 comics on, like, come on, man. That is some dickhead thing, innit? Like, that is some pure dickhead thing. There's 12 comics on this lineup and you're doing 3 hours. No, you're taking the piss, man. You're taking the piss. You originally meant to go on at 9 and now it's 1 a.m. and you still haven't gone on. And the club's gonna close at 4. Nah, comedians are fucking awful to each other, man. So awful.
Patio. Eddie Griffin doing 2 hours.
Right.
Then Dice is there. He does 2 hours, right? That means we don't get up.
Yeah.
And look at the young people that were there back then.
Yeah, we got Izanella. Yeah, that's a very good point. That Sober October was the one that he like turned the switch in it and started getting really aggro with it as well. Like, it's like, brother, relax, man. You're like, and I remember he took a lot of pleasure out of winning. It's like, brother, you beat like a literal alcoholic in Burr, and a guy in fucking Tom Segura who legitimately broke his hand trying to do a layup. But yeah, Rogan got super competitive with that one particular. I remember that Sober October. I remember that one. where he just started like working out twice a day and running this and like, okay, relax, man, relax.
Handler, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Sebastian Maniscalco. I mean, there are people that had to wait. And we were
hoping to get 5 minutes, and they were
we were on the list to do 15, right? But they would you're supposed to do 15, right? And they would do 2 hours.
It was him. Dice would do it sometimes. Mencia would do it all the time. Oh my god.
Yeah, but it was the thing is, it was kind of the culture of the Comedy Store. In Eddie's defense, is that if you reached a certain level of fame, and at the time Eddie was definitely more famous than us.
I mean, you can't to think Joe Rogan, what he is now. You know what I mean? But they used to do it to him.
At the store, when you reached a certain level of prominence, you were allowed to just do whatever the fuck you wanted, and people would show up. And apparently, Kinnison used to do that, and a lot of guys used to do that.
But do hours?
I get it, man. I don't agree with it.
You wouldn't do it?
No, but there's certain guys did. Certain guys that are really good did. Chappelle did it. There's a bunch of guys who did it. It was a thing that you're allowed to do there.
These things were happening at the exact. It was just a. It was a
accumulation.
It was a perfect storm.
It's a perfect storm. Yeah, it's like. And now the rule. Let me just finish. Yeah. I'm sorry. So now.
But I don't know how you can excuse that type of behavior. I'm sorry. That's lack of respect for your fellow comedian, for your fellow peer. There's no excuse in that behavior. The club owner should have put their foot down. If you're meant to do 15, maybe if you're a famous comedian, you're coming through. Okay, you get to do 30. You can do 30 minutes. You get double time because you're the famous comedian guy. But doing 3 hours, 1 hour, come on, man, you're taking the piss. It's similar in the DJ world. Sometimes when you go play as a DJ, you might take over from another person playing ahead of you, right? And sometimes there's occasions where it's happened to me like once or twice, where maybe the DJ is like over ego, just like, you know, a control freak, and doesn't want to get off the decks, or they're feeling themselves too much and they don't want to get off. Nah, man, like, you had your time, now it's my time, you fucking get off the decks, or I'm pulling the fucking power cable. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, there's no like, what the fuck are you doing? But you can't let that or because this person's a bigger person. No. That shouldn't be running. That shouldn't be running at all. That's not fair for everybody else. At most, like I said, if it's meant to be 15, you get 30 minutes, but don't do 3 hours. Like, now you're taking a piss.
The new rule at the Comedy Store is it's like, if Chappelle goes over 10 minutes, fine. Right?
Yeah.
But if Chris Rock does an extra 15 minutes, fine.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're superstars.
Yes.
Kevin wants to bump us, we're fine, right? Just don't do 2 hours. Right.
The difference is Dave Chappelle.
Yes.
Kevin Hart.
Yes.
Chris Rock. No better.
Yes.
They don't fucking play that game.
They don't play the game.
So these guys were doing a thing they knew was fucked up, and they did it
and
anyway.
they knew nobody would do anything about it.
Because Dave would come up to you and go, "Hey man, I think I'm going to do this amount of time." So it would relieve people. He would do it in a way that comics, there's a bond that he'd go, "Hey, I'm going to work out." And people would know. He would never do it unassumingly just to fuck over people. Back then, there was a vibe of like, I'm the shit. I'll do what I want
to do.
Yeah.
This explains a lot about comedians, man. It explains a lot. Now it's impossible for me not to believe these guys are all haters. It explains a lot. Because imagine if you're somebody that came up in the industry and you got bumped by certain people like this. You hold on to that resentment. Now you become the big dog. Now you try to, like, you know, give it back to, like, it's impossible for me not to believe comedians are haters. Because of all this weird politics and drama and shit and power games they do behind the scenes. That's kind of a bit outside of the, you know, out of the public eye. It's impossible not to believe that there's a lot of fucking issues that they kind of put up with behind the scenes, which also turns it into more of what they probably don't like, you know?
This is what I was alluding to earlier. Bobby, Santino, and Rogan himself across 3 different podcasts over 7 years all confirmed the same thing. In the 90s, the Comedy Store had this toxic hierarchy where guys like Mencia, Dice, and...
You know what's funny though? You know what's funny? Doesn't it sound a little bit like the Mothership? The Mothership also has got its own... So that kind of... That imprinting, that kind of... what do you call it? That kind of... What's that? Not imprinting. That kind of... that birthing, that schooling has left a mark on Rogan, innit? because it sounds like the mothership is a bit similar. There's a lot of drama going on there, a lot of power games, a lot of weirdness. So it's left a lasting effect on Rogan because he runs the mothership. I won't say sit, but he runs the mothership in a way that people aren't really liking. Because usually, if it was a traumatic experience that you don't want to repeat again, you would make your own club completely different. You know, it wouldn't have that same sort of feel. But people are saying the same sort of things, not the same sort of things, but like, you know, people are just not comfortable or whatever, or feel a bad vibe around the mothership in the same way that there was a bad vibe at the fucking Comedy Store in the 90s.
Eddie Griffin would drop in and do 2 or 3 hour sets, knowing they were shitting all over the lineup for that night. All these other young comics would just sit around waiting for them to finish, and Mitzi Shaw let it happen because those names put.
Yeah, big up a Black American. I've heard that phrase. I had a big fight. I had a big argument and a falling out with a really top guy at Nike because of that whole phrase. I hated that coming up. I always knew those type of phrases were always dog whistles and codes for just taking the piss out of people. Dog whistles and codes for exploitation. Dog whistles and codes for mugging you off, for taking the piss, for sunning you, for trying to big bro you. You know, those were what they were. Because I was kind of fortunate in that growing up, I always like had this feeling deep down that everyone was just like me. Like I never got overly gassed on anybody, you know, apart from maybe footballers or maybe the only people that got stuff. But like, you know, in the scene, like, you know, with like design stuff and fashion stuff and whatever, I never looked at those people like as like, I don't know, as like super special, talented freak. You know, I don't know, whatever they looked at people like. So I could never get, you know, I could never like acquiesce. I could never just fall in line and start licking ass and shit, which obviously maybe didn't help me as well going forward in career. Maybe, who knows. But I do remember a lot of people in position of power, of influence, would say shit like, but you gotta pay your dues, man. You just gotta pay. What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck does pay your dues mean? Work for free? What the fuck does pay your dues mean? Do work and not receive any credit for it? What does work for free? What does pay your dues mean? Work underneath somebody that is a legitimate fucking redact. And be happy with it because you're in the industry, because you get in your face like, come on, man. Come on. That whole pay your dues thing is fucking nonsense. So yeah, I can only imagine how bad it was for the comedians. But again, I think it explains a lot about their attitudes and personalities. It explains quite a bit of how they are and how they act, and the need to like make it and get back over someone and all this sort of shit. Like, yeah, it explains quite a lot.
In seats. Now combine that with the attitude I mentioned earlier that guys like Mencia felt entitled to any material they wanted because they were the elite, and you can see how personal this was for Joe Rogan. He was working his ass off every night, writing, training, grinding at his craft, trimming off all the fat, and not breaking through. I mean, mostly due to the fact that he wasn't actually funny. But anyway, meanwhile, Mencia's sitting at the top taking whatever he wants, bumping whoever he wants, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And so, like Bobby said, the other comedians were building resentment. It was a perfect storm, and Rogan's ego finally had a target. I gotta say though, the way Rogan roped Bobby into this was arrogant as hell, you know, with the hidden camera like that, ambushing him without his knowledge. By the way, the guy producing those videos was Brian Redband, who then went on to found JRE with Joe, got replaced by Young Jamie, and then started Kill Tony with Tony Hinchcliffe. Talk about failing upwards. But the way Rogan went about this was super heavy-handed, and it caught a lot of comedians offside, but like Bobby, they didn't have a choice. And here's the irony. I'm sure some of you will appreciate this. Rogan actually got banned from the Comedy Store for filming inside the club. Fast forward to now at the Comedy Mothership in Austin, you can't even take your phone in there. They seal them in bags. So if someone tried what Rogan did back then in his club today, they would be assassinated by SEAL Team 6. Just saying. All he did was replace the comedy bubble from the 90s with himself.
Wait, that picture's awful, bro. Is that picture awful, or does he just look like, God damn it, bro? Fuck, where's his neck? Forget the other guy. Where the fuck is his neck? What the fuck is that picture? That's an awful picture to put up on your Instagram. Why would you upload that? God damn.
at the top. It's all the same shit. Rogan hasn't called out a single joke stealer since then, especially the ones he's friends with. I've covered how he himself stole a premise from Schaub's Gringo Puppy, and I covered on Patreon recently how Tony Hinchcliffe stole several shitty jokes in his Netflix comedy special.
It's not nice to speak ill about someone that's gone, but Robin Williams was notorious for doing this.
Yes.
Right, but this is the...
But Damon Wayans said that.
Yeah, I know. It's not like a secret.
But he also said Carlos.
They would call him Robin Jokes Williams.
Robin Jokes Williams? Yeah.
That was the nickname,
because
right?
he would steal from people younger than him.
Yeah. In fact, if he stole one of your jokes, there was a call that you can call a line, and they would send you a check if he did, right? So what
that's a dangerous place to be.
But my point, though, being is that Robin Williams never went to comedy prison.
Yeah.
He never had to.
He got the world, right? There are modern comics now that are accused of stealing jokes, right? And it's credible. They get into prison for a year, right? He was
all this talk about stealing jokes, man. Just be funny. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, this is probably sacrilege to say, but may the funniest joke win. Stolen or not, may the funniest joke win, man. On God, most of these guys are already stealing a living, stealing a fucking living. I'm sorry, but whoever's got the funniest joke, I don't care who did it first, who copied who, you win, please, because I'm not all this like give credit to the, but then when you go back to the person that said it originally, it's like you're fucking awful. So I don't know. I think I'd rather Mencia. I'm not gonna lie. I think I'd rather have 10 Mencias than one Rogan.
In prison for 20 years.
He's saying the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
The punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Bobby's right about the double standard. Robin Williams did the same thing and never spent a day in comedy prison. But I will push back on one thing. Bobby says other comedians get put in prison for a year or two, but a lot of them don't even get that at all. They just ignore it.
Exactly.
Rogan protects them and everyone moves on.
That's the real double standards and real shady part of it. Rogan made it seem like joke stealing was the biggest sin ever in comedy, right? They all did, right? They acted like joke stealing is the biggest sin ever. They made it seem like joke stealing was worse than Mencia doing fucking hours and bumping. The bumping people wasn't a big issue. Allegedly, he used to bump people all the time at the comedy store. He used to bump people all the time at the comedy store. You think you're going on at 7, now you're going on at 1 a.m. and no one's in the club after he fucking leaves. But no one had an issue with that. No one had an issue with him bumping, you know? The issue mainly was, you know what I mean? That was the main issue. Which is fucking weird and fucked up itself in its own way. But yeah. Big up Bobby Lee. Like I said, a little bit of a dodgy, slimy guy in my opinion. Little bit of a dodgy, slimy guy in my opinion. Little bit dodgy, little bit slimy. There's other clips as well from this show. I don't want to talk about them already because we did it. This is the picture of him, right? So this is Mencia. Is he fresh out of prison, right? Mencia brushes off alleged 8.7 million tax bill with a brazen 7-word statement. What did he say here? He's looking rough though, I'm not gonna lie. Man's looking fucking rough. He definitely lost the war, that's for sure. He lost the battle and he lost the war because he's looking rough. Gained a bunch of weight as well. Holy shit. Let's see. Comedian Carlos Mencia isn't shying away from the last tax mistakes, getting very blunt with California Post on exactly what led to his multi-million-dollar case. All I did was not pay my taxes. That's funny. I'm not gonna lie. That one line's funnier than anything Rogan said. All I did was not pay my taxes. This is hilarious. Facing 12 felonies connected to his more than 8 million owed. Oof. 8 mil. God damn, Carlos, bro. You didn't pay a single penny, innit? Being arrested, the guns, that was a very shocking thing. I was compared to Al Capone. All I did was not pay my taxes. I never cheated on anything. I never got paid. I never got paid in cash. I never didn't sign a 1099. How much money I made will come out because I never hid it. Shit. We'll find out his total. That'll be interesting to see, by the way. Very interested to see how his total earnings are. It'll be very interesting to see what his total earnings are. I'm not gonna lie. Can't say with his attorney there. Mencia wearing a University of Oregon jacket and a t-shirt and blazer was super funny. was joined by his wife and attorney Dana Cole. Cole argued, what? Oh, okay, I thought his wife is Dana Cole. No, okay. Cole argued that the comedian should be able to visit his LA estate in order to help pay his $300 tax bill. Cole attempted to unfreeze assets from Mencia's Citibank account so he could pay living expenses and his attorney fees as he continued to fight the multiple charges. Judge Alicio ruled that Mencia could enlist his Encino mansion, believed to be $4.5 million. The judge also allowed £100,000 taken out of his bank account. Fuck, he's got £100 just lying in his bank account. Fuck, you know. So he has to sell one of his homes to raise the money to pay that fucking bill, I guess. Damn. At the end of the day, we're going to take care of this. It's how we get there that's a little bit painful for the psychological and physical standpoint. They got what they wanted. They got the attention of this issue from me. So it's, I mean, they got what they wanted. Mencia as well. Lack of accountability is fucking crazy. They got what they wanted. I hope you're happy now. It's like, what do you mean? You're the one that didn't pay the taxes. They wouldn't be on you if you paid your taxes. They got what they wanted. I hope you're happy now. It's like, huh? How's it anyone else's fault but yours? We got Carlos Mencia, man. To the day that he dies, he's never going to accept accountability. It's everyone else's fault but his. Always everyone else's fault. You gotta respect it, brother. I'm not gonna lie. You gotta respect fucking Carlos Mencia's determination to never, ever, ever accept any type of responsibility or take any accountability for his actions. It's actually kind of insane. He's looking wide though. Wide. That's Hinder again. Mencia was the first arrested was first arrested in DA Nathan Hochman's newly formed business tax fraud unit last month. Mencia allegedly failed to file taxes. Fucking hell. From 2019 to 2024 is crazy. For 5 years. No taxes. Yo, Mencia was running around crazy, bro. 5 years. I thought a couple. Holy shit. I was like a couple of years, a year at max. 5. The California Franchise Tax Board allegedly mailed 78 demand notices to his residents, and he ignored every single one. Investigators descended on Mencia's property in the bus, hauling out boxes, sealed cases, bags of electronics, and evidence tied to sweeping tax evasion. Mencia requested his phones and computers be returned during Tuesday's hearing, despite leases and things. It was revealed that Mencia has a property valued at $150,000 in escrow in Oregon, and both Mencia and his wife had their licenses suspended by California Franchise Tax Board. Really? Before his arrest? But what license got fucking cancelled? Which one? Maybe homeowners. Before this case was called, Mencia was watching the World Cup game between Spain and France in Court Gallery. When asked if he was supporting, he said, "Doesn't matter with Mexico and USM have no skin in the game." The comedian has 2 gigs scheduled in Vegas this week and says the arrest has become part of the stand-up. As I say on stage, I'm waiting for a pink bill to blow up, and the one that says that you're about to be cut off. I was waiting for that for the franchise tax board. So yeah, Mencia's out here getting arrested for tax evasion. Crazy, man. Crazy, crazy, crazy.